Yeah.
That's it.
Good job.
And you have to meet this man. He is the architect. He designed.
Oh, fantastic. So wonderful to have you.
And we lay the basket on the outside, and then we blow it even bigger, and that's what stretches it.
He was running upstairs when you're all well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's all I want to do is go watch myself.
Well, but there are people.
So one of the things too that you'll notice that's worth pointing out perhaps is this is kind of like what this crab would look like if you were another crab. It's kind of eye to eye. And I was even showing the students on the vessel this morning. I would pick up a crab and say, look at that, but look at it eye to eye. And they go, oh my God, let me take a picture of that. You know, so they were not used to seeing it like that.
At our environment and our space and considering those different perspectives or those different experiences is something that I've always just sort of played with imagining. And so this is essentially a line drawing of those types of forms, but in space, using cedar branches as pencil marks or brush strokes. And that was the general concept. In terms of the aesthetic and what the space is sort of trying to create.
Ask the model to jump into a pool and I'm underneath with the camera, I can take a photo of what they do.
Hi, Carrie. Very good. Good. brushed the color on, he took, like here where it's light and then it's a little bit dark, he probably brushed it up. These prints are carved, the image is carved out of cherry wood, a block. And he used from 5 to 27 blocks per print.
Religious icons. The triptych, the sides, she comes through this almost more like improvising music. Sometimes I get holes.
Well, I work down in gardens.
The exhibition itself is all work which stemmed from his investigation into the 2008 Wenchuan earthquake, which was an earthquake which struck Sichuan province. It was an 8.0 magnitude earthquake, which killed somewhere in the neighborhood of 70,000 people, of which almost over 5,000 were school children. There's the Sichuan name list. Then on the back wall over here, we have a video which is called Little Girl's Cheek. And that's a video which is of all the different documentary video that was collected while they were doing their investigation, their citizens' investigations. And then we have this third piece, which is here in the middle, which is called Case and Rebar. So in this particular case, what you see here, what looks like rebar, actually isn't the original rebar. He took twisted pieces of rebar that were pulled from those buildings, and then he made exact replicas of that rebar out of marble. What do we see when we see these cases? I think that for me, in the backdrop of the name list and this video, it becomes incredibly difficult not to see each one of these cases as a coffin. Across the museum right now, we've got a very interesting arc. So in the North Gallery, we've got Goya. In the main gallery, we have Ai Weiwei. And in the atrium, we have Dana Lynn Lewis. And one of the things that I've done in this show to help forge that link is in the Goya exhibition, you'll actually see that I've taken more of these of Ai Weiwei's statements from Twitter, and I've put those in the wall, on the wall there in the Goya exhibition. And that's because I see a link between Ai Weiwei and Goya, which is quite direct in terms of the way that their two minds approached and processed these types of human catastrophes. So the exhibition, which is occupying the North Gallery this time around, is called Sleep of Reason, Selected Prints by Francisco Goya. And it gets its title from this very, very famous print, which is El sueño de la razón produce monstruos, which means the sleep of reason produces monsters. You see just these unbelievable images of torture and killing and robbery and people taking advantage of other people, a lot of power dynamics that are here. I chose Goya as a historical counterpoint, so that's going back through time. And then going forward, or going, contemporaneously, to drawing something here to the northwest. One of the artists that I have been particularly interested in over the year, I've been following for many years, is Dana Lynn Lewis, who's a Portland-based artist who spent years and years working in Western Africa. And she founded a cultural center there in Mali called the Kofalin Cultural Center. She began to make work which was very much about light. It was very much about these types of floating structures, and very much about how do we channel energy through ourselves such that we can clear ourselves of negative emotions. How do we not hold on to that pain? How do we clear that grief? And how can we channel energy of hope and energy that has some sort of buoyancy to it? And I think it's an incredibly fascinating question that she's asking, and that her response to it shows that I think that she's tapped into something which really works to that end.
I'm Dorothy Kerper-Monley. I'm a fine art photographer focusing on the wild natural landscape. Any of us that are landscape photographers search for subjects, search for a place that excites us and gives us a sense of beauty. Wonderful patterns on the pond here in the winter, especially when there's a light snow and the wind just blows and sweeps the snow across the black ice, making a sort of a statement of the combination of the wind and the water and the elements.
This one has like a direct address to a reader, so someone who's reading the books. And it's kind of nice because you still see some of the words that came from the climate change document about like adaptation and about migration and scarcity and water. And so those words sort of come out, but they're put into this sort of new, more poetic sort of reading of that text. That as you spin around the whole piece, I was thinking about how the viewer, the image changes and it breaks apart as you move around to the side. Actually, a lot of people have mentioned that. They feel like they relate. I know Diane was thinking that too.
Visual artist Diane Kornberg and poet Elizabeth Frost are presenting Crossing Borders as a series of the Artist Voice Talks. Kornberg, an Obstruction Island resident, has collaborated with Frost to make photo-based digital prints that incorporate poetic text. And for all we know, Kornberg relies on her knowledge of the conventions of scientific collection, preservation, and notation to create fictional specimen pages. Both women have held artist residencies at the Whiteley Center at the University of Washington, Friday Harbor Labs, where Kornberg made some of the photographs used in the exhibition. Diane has been exhibiting her work nationally and internationally for more than 3 decades.
Gee's Bend is a little town in Alabama. Isolated place. The women that live there, they're descendant from slaves. The slaves came from West Africa. They brought with them their traditions from West Africa. And one of the things that you can see about their work is they have a very African feel. And sometimes that African feel can show itself in the design, and sometimes it can show itself in the technique. So this particular quilt in the corner, the railroad quilt, that is a very African technique of strip quilting. If you want to go on the Smithsonian website, type in Corinne Riley, and you can see her collection of 60 quilts that the Smithsonian has purchased from her. So she started her life off as a collector, she became a quilt restorer, and then she herself makes quilts. So this quilt in the corner, this is a quilt made of cashmere sweaters. This is one of Corinne's pieces. If you'd like to know more about innovative quilting, go online to the Modern Quilt Guild and then go into their gallery and look up improvisational quilting. And you'll see where traditional quilters are kind of busting out a little bit. So you'll probably get asked a lot of questions about the big blue dress. It's made out of steel and old blue tarp. Mostly he's a welder, but he's very drawn to textiles and clothing. He sews. Sometimes he'll weld gigantic cowboy boots or a purse that's 12 feet across. So he likes accessories, he likes dresses. Anyway, he's a guy with a good sense of humor.